Valentine's Day had always been Grant Whitaker's favorite kind of performance. He liked the flowers delivered where people could see them. He liked reservations under his name, tables near the windows, champagne brought out at exactly the right moment. He liked the photographs afterward, the carefully lit proof that he was still a generous husband, still a successful man, still someone women envied. For years, Evelyn Carter had helped him make that performance believable. She had chosen the flowers. She had remembered the names of clients' spouses. She had sat beside him at charity dinners while he accepted praise for causes she had researched, donors she had persuaded, children she had visited when no cameras were present. She had learned how to smooth the tension out of a room before Grant even noticed it was there. And when he became cold afterward, when he criticized her dress, her weight, her laugh, the way she'd answered a question too quickly or too softly, Evelyn had told herself he was stressed. She had told herself successful men carried pressure differently. She had told herself marriage required patience. That night, she wore the red gown he once said made her unforgettable. It was deep wine red, soft at the shoulders, fitted at the waist, elegant without trying too hard. She had stood in front of the sweet mirror for almost 20 minutes before leaving, not because she was vain, but because she had been trying to recognize herself. For the past year, Grant had slowly convinced her that she had become invisible, too emotional, too expensive, too sensitive, too dependent, too much, and somehow never enough. Still, Evelyn had bought him a gift. A vintage watch she had seen him admire months earlier in a quiet display case near his office. She had paid for it by saving small amounts from the household money Grant transferred into her account each month. The money, he reminded her, often was not hers, but money he allowed her to use. She had wrapped the watch herself in silver paper and tied it with a black ribbon. Now it rested in her hands as she stood in the Whitaker Grand Hotel lobby beneath a ceiling of warm gold lights and white Valentine's roses. The hotel was beautiful in the way expensive places were designed to be beautiful. Polished stone floors, soft music, tall arrangements, staff moving quietly with the confidence of people trained never to make a guest feel rushed. But Evelyn had spent enough years in rooms like that to know beauty could become lonely when no one beside you was kind. She checked her phone. Grant was 40 minutes late. No message, no apology. Just the faint blue glow of a screen that had become too familiar with silence. She looked toward the front entrance again. Then again, she tried to tell herself he had been delayed by business. That was what she always told herself first. Grant was busy. Grant was under pressure. Grant did not mean it. But there were moments when a woman's body understood the truth before her mind was ready to name it. Evelyn felt it first as a tightening in her chest, then as a quiet warning in the back of her throat. Then, finally, as Grant walked through the hotel doors with another woman on his arm. The woman was Marjorie Whitaker, not related to him, not yet, but familiar. Marjorie had appeared at several Whitaker Foundation events over the last year. She was polished, ambitious, always dressed in clean lines and pale neutral colors, always standing a little too close to Grant when she thought no one was paying attention. Grant had called her brilliant. Grant had said Evelyn was imagining things. Grant had told Evelyn she needed to stop embarrassing him with insecure little questions. Tonight, Marjorie wore ivory silk and a calm, almost practiced smile. Grant did not look surprised to see Evelyn. He looked irritated that she was still there. "Evelyn," he said, as though he had found her waiting in the wrong room. "Why are you standing in the lobby?" Her fingers tightened around the small wrapped watch. "You told me to meet you here. I told you I had dinner plans. You said Valentine's Day dinner, with me." Grant glanced toward Marjorie, then back to Evelyn. There was no shame in his expression, no hesitation, just a kind of relieved cruelty. He said, low enough that it sounded controlled but loud enough for the people nearest them to hear. "That was before I decided I was done pretending." The lobby seemed to grow quieter around them. Evelyn felt eyes move away and then return. She hated that. The watching, the pretending not to watch. Grant stepped closer, not with tenderness, but with calculation. "The suite is no longer available to you," he said. "The hotel has been instructed that you are not to go upstairs." For a second, Evelyn thought she had misunderstood him. "My things are upstairs. Some of your things. My medicine is upstairs. You can arrange to collect whatever you need later." She looked from Grant to Marjorie. "Later?" Grant's mouth tightened. "Don't make a scene." That sentence had followed Evelyn through too many years. Don't make a scene when he raised his voice at home. Don't make a scene when he canceled her card. Don't make a scene when he humiliated her at dinner. Don't make a scene when he told her no one would believe her because everyone knew what a good husband he was. Evelyn swallowed. "Where am I supposed to go?" Grant stared at her for one long second. Then he said, "That is not my problem anymore." The gift slipped from Evelyn's hand. It did not break. The silver paper only bent at one corner. But something inside her did. Not loudly. Not in a way anyone else could see. It was smaller than that. Quieter. The sound of a woman realizing that the person who had promised to protect her had spent years preparing to abandon her at the exact moment she would be least able to stand. Grant turned toward the elevators with Marjorie. Evelyn watched him leave. For years, she had watched his back, watched him walk away from conversations. Watched him leave rooms after saying something sharp and cruel, knowing she would follow him eventually, apologizing for whatever he had decided was her fault. But this time, Evelyn did not follow. She walked toward the reception desk instead. Her heels were steady at first, and they were not. The receptionist looked up, her professional smile fading as she recognized Evelyn. "Mrs. Whitaker," she said quietly, "I need a room." The receptionist's expression changed again. Not cold, not unkind, but careful. Evelyn knew that look. It was the look people gave when they had been instructed not to help. "I'm sorry," the receptionist said softly. "The account associated with the Whitaker suite has been restricted. Put it on my card." Evelyn handed over her card. The receptionist ran it. Once, then again. Her smile became more strained. "I'm sorry, it was declined." Evelyn frowned. That can't be right. She tried another card, then another. Declined, declined, declined. Her face warmed. Grant had done this before in smaller ways. He had transferred money without telling her, changed limits, closed joint accounts, and claimed the bank had made an error, told her she was careless with spending when she asked questions. But he had never done it in public. Not like this. Not when she had nowhere else to go. The receptionist leaned forward. "Mrs. Whitaker, would you like to sit down for a moment?" Evelyn shook her head. "No, I need to call my husband." But when she called Grant, the phone rang once and went to voicemail. She called again. Then again. The third time it went straight to voicemail. Her battery was at 4%. Her medicine was upstairs. Her identification was upstairs. Her passport was upstairs. The overnight bag she had packed for what she thought would be a romantic weekend was upstairs. Even her reading glasses were upstairs. Grant had not only left her, he had cut off every small thing that could help her leave on her own. Stories like Evelyn's are fictional, but the patterns are real. Subscribe to Velvet Justice Chronicles for survivor-centered stories about seeing the truth, finding support, and choosing yourself. Across the lobby, Kang Seo-jun had been leaving a private meeting. He was not the kind of man who drew attention because he demanded it. He drew attention because rooms seemed to organize themselves around his quiet certainty. At 48, Seo-jun had built a reputation as a powerful hotel owner, with flawless instincts and an unreadable calm. People who knew only the public version of him saw a businessman. People who knew more understood that he had survived a life where trust had cost too much and weakness had been punished quickly. He had seen Grant Whitaker before. Grant was the sort of man Seo-jun recognized immediately, a man who mistook control for strength, a man who only looked generous when other people were watching. Seo-jun did not approach Evelyn. He did not step in front of her. He did not make the moment about himself. Instead, he spoke quietly to Mrs. Han, the senior guest services director who had worked at the Whitaker Grand longer than most people had known how to hold a secret. Mrs. Han crossed the lobby and stopped beside Evelyn. "Mrs. Carter," she said gently. Evelyn looked up, startled by the use of her maiden name. Mrs. Han held out a small card. "There is a private office available," she said. "You may charge your phone, make calls, and sit somewhere quiet while you decide what you need." Evelyn stared at the card. "I can't afford a room." "I did not say anything about a room." Mrs. Han's voice remained warm. "I said there is a private office available." Evelyn almost refused. The instinct came quickly. Years of being told that help came with strings had made her suspicious of every offered hand. "What does it cost?" she asked. Mrs. Hahn's eyes softened. "A safe room is not a debt." For a moment, Evelyn could not speak. Then she nodded. The office was small, quiet, and warm. There was a desk, a lamp, 2 soft chairs, a charging station, bottled water, tissues, and a window overlooking the city. Nothing grand, nothing performative. Just a room where no one was asking her to explain why she deserved to be there. Mrs. Hahn brought her tea. Evelyn did not drink it at first. Her hands were shaking too much. She plugged in her phone, watched the battery climb from 4% to 5, then 6, and finally called the only person she could think of. Lena Marsh, her oldest friend. The woman Evelyn had slowly stopped calling because Grant always had something to say afterward. Lena answered on the first ring. "Evelyn?" And that was all it took. Not a question, not an accusation. Just her name, spoken like it still belonged to her. Evelyn tried to make the story sound smaller than it was. She said Grant was upset. She said there had been a misunderstanding. She said she was fine. Lena listened for 3 seconds before saying, "Where are you?" "I don't want to bother you. You are not bothering me." "Lena, where are you, Evelyn?" The question was not impatient. It was steady. It was the question of someone who had finally recognized that a woman was drowning and did not have time to pretend she was merely tired. Evelyn looked out the office window at the city lights. Then she told her. Lena arrived 40 minutes later in jeans, a wool coat, and shoes that did not match because she had clearly put them on while running out the door. The moment she stepped inside the office, Evelyn stood. For 1 second, both women simply looked at each other. Then Lena crossed the room and held her. Evelyn did not collapse dramatically. She did not sob into Lena's shoulder the way people did in movies. She just stood there, stiff at first, then softer, then suddenly unable to keep holding herself together. "I'm sorry," Evelyn whispered. Lena pulled back and looked directly at her. "For what? I should have told you things were bad. You do not owe me an apology for surviving the best way you knew how." Evelyn looked down. Lena's voice lowered. "I knew something was wrong. I knew you were disappearing. And I let Grant convince me that it was just marriage. I should have pushed harder." "No," Evelyn said quickly. "He was very convincing." "That is what controlling people are," Lena said. "Convincing. Until you see the pattern." The words stayed between them. Pattern. Not one bad night. Not one cruel sentence. Not one forgotten anniversary. A pattern. The hotel's legal liaison had already been contacted, but Evelyn needed independent advice. Mrs. Han helped connect her with attorney Ma Ji-won, a family law advocate known for handling cases involving hidden assets, coercive control, and financial abuse. Attorney Ma arrived just before midnight. She was composed, sharply dressed, and carried no unnecessary sympathy in her expression. That mattered. Evelyn was tired of being looked at with pity. Attorney Ma sat across from her and asked simple questions. Not why did you stay? Not why didn't you leave earlier? But do you have access to your identification? No. Medication? No. Cash? About $60. Accounts in your own name? Evelyn hesitated. No. Credit cards not connected to Grant or the marital household? No. Do you have copies of tax records, mortgage documents, insurance records, investment statements, passwords, or property deeds? Evelyn felt smaller with every question. No. No. I don't know. Finally, she looked down at her hands. Grant handled those things. Attorney Ma nodded slowly. Did he tell you that you were bad with money? Evelyn gave a small, embarrassed laugh. All the time. Did he make you feel guilty for asking questions? Yes. Did he call you irresponsible when you wanted access to accounts? Yes. Did he pressure you to sign documents without explaining them? Evelyn looked up. The memory came back instantly. Grant standing beside her at the dining table with a stack of papers. Grant saying he needed her signature because the accountant was waiting. Grant kissing her forehead afterward and calling her his good wife. Yes, Evelyn said. Attorney Ma folded her hands. Mrs. Carter, I want to be careful with the language I use, but what you are describing may not simply be marital conflict. It may be financial abuse. The room went still. Evelyn had heard words like abuse before. She had imagined bruises, broken dishes, police lights, things people could see. She had never imagined a locked account, a missing passport, a husband deciding she could not sleep in the hotel suite she had helped pay for. Financial abuse? Evelyn asked. Attorney Ma nodded. It can involve restricting access to money, hiding assets, damaging credit, monitoring spending, forcing signatures, controlling transportation, isolating someone from support, or making them believe they cannot survive without the person controlling the finances. Evelyn looked toward the window. The city was still glowing. Cars still moved below. People were still laughing in restaurants. The world had not stopped, but something inside her had shifted. For years, Grant had taught her to be ashamed of not understanding money. Now she understood that confusion had served him, dependence had served him, her silence had served him, and he had counted on it. Attorney Ma outlined the first steps. No confrontation alone, no signing new documents, no responding to threats or apologies without legal review. Document every call, every message, every financial restriction. Secure essential documents. Protect her credit. Retrieve medication and identification with legal support present. Evelyn listened carefully. Then she asked, "Can he really do this?" Attorney Ma's answer was honest. He can try, but trying to control the story is not the same as owning the truth. The hotel placed Evelyn in a discreet room for the night through its confidential safety support protocol. It was not given in Sojun's name. It was not framed as charity. It was simply a temporary safe space, offered with her consent. Mrs. Han walked Evelyn upstairs herself. At the door, Evelyn stopped. "I don't know how to accept this," she admitted. Mrs. Han smiled gently. "Then do not think of it as accepting something forever. Think of it as accepting it for tonight." That was something Evelyn could do, tonight. She could survive tonight. The next morning, Evelyn woke before sunrise. For a few seconds, she did not remember where she was. Then she saw the unfamiliar curtains, the hotel robe folded on the chair, the small bottle of water beside the bed, and she remembered everything. The lobby, the cards, Grant's face, Marjorie's silence. She sat on the edge of the bed and felt the old instinct rise again. Call Grant, apologize, ask what she did wrong, promise to be easier. But then she remembered Attorney Ma's voice. Trying to control the story is not the same as owning the truth. So Evelyn did not call him. Instead, she made a list: medication, identification, passport, bank records, tax documents, laptop, jewelry her mother had left her. The list was short at first, then longer still. By the time Attorney Ma arrived, Evelyn had written down nearly 20 things Grant had access to that she did not. Attorney Ma read the list and said, "Good, this is where we start." That morning, Evelyn walked back into the Whitaker Grand Hotel lobby wearing borrowed clothes from Lena's overnight bag. Dark trousers, a cream blouse, a camel coat. She did not look like the woman in the red gown from the night before. She looked like someone beginning to make decisions. Kang Sojun was there near the elevators, speaking quietly with Park Jin. When he saw Evelyn, he did not stop her. He did not ask where she was going. He simply nodded once, respectfully. Like he understood that some people needed to know they could walk into a room on their own before they could ever believe they were free. Evelyn paused beside him. "Thank you," she said. Seo-jun met her eyes. "You do not need to thank me for being treated with basic dignity." She studied him for a second. "That does not happen as often as it should." "No," he said. "It does not." Then he stepped aside and let her pass. The suite was on the 29th floor. Attorney Ma had arranged for a hotel representative and independent security officer to accompany them. Grant had left before sunrise. Marjorie had left with him, but the room still held evidence of the night before. 2 glasses on the table, a half-empty champagne bottle, Grant's suit jacket thrown across a chair, Evelyn's overnight bag untouched near the bed. For a second, she could not breathe. It was not just a hotel suite. It was the place where she had been waiting to be loved. The place where she had thought she was spending Valentine's Day with her husband. The place where Grant had already decided she no longer belonged. Attorney Ma moved gently. "Take your time," she said. Evelyn walked toward the safe. Her hands shook as she entered the code. Grant had used the same number for years, the date they met. For a long time, Evelyn thought that meant something. Now it felt like another way he had turned memory into control. Inside the safe were her passport, identification, jewelry, and several folders. One folder contained documents she recognized: insurance, tax returns, property information. But beneath those papers was another file, one she had never seen. It was marked only with Grant's initials. Evelyn opened it. The first document was a property transfer. The second was a bank statement from an account she did not know existed. The third was a copy of a foundation payment authorized under her name. And then there was a letter. Not handwritten, not sentimental. A business letter from Marjorie. It referenced the transition plan. It mentioned moving certain assets before Evelyn becomes difficult. Evelyn read the sentence twice, then a third time. Her stomach dropped. Grant had not pushed her out in one moment of anger. He had been preparing to remove her from their life piece by piece. The accounts, the home, the foundation. The story everyone would believe. Attorney Ma stepped closer, careful not to touch anything. "May I?" Evelyn handed her the folder. Attorney Ma's expression became very still. "This," she said quietly, "is important." Evelyn looked around the suite one last time, at the flowers she had arranged, at the furniture she had chosen, at the empty chair where Grant had once sat and made her feel lucky to be loved by him. Then she picked up her overnight bag, and for the first time in years, she walked out without asking him what she was allowed to take. Back in Attorney Ma's office later that afternoon, the folder changed everything. The documents showed signs of concealed transfers. Several foundation payments had been routed through companies Evelyn had never heard of. Her name appeared on forms she did not remember signing. There were references to property restructuring, restricted access, and financial arrangements timed around the same period Grant began calling her unstable. Attorney Ma did not overpromise. She did not tell Evelyn that justice would be simple. But she told her something more useful. You have options. Evelyn sat very still. Options. A woad Grant had slowly taken from her. He had made her believe there were only two choices in life: stay with him or lose everything. Attorney Ma explained that they could take steps immediately: secure records, protect credit, request financial disclosures, seek temporary legal protections, document the account restrictions, identify assets, recover emails, correspondence, and tax documents. Evelyn listened. Then she asked the question that mattered most. Can I build a life after this? Attorney Ma looked directly at her. Yes, she said. But you do not have to build all of it today. That answer gave Evelyn room to breathe. Not everything today. Just the next thing. The next document. The next phone call. The next safe place to sleep. The days that followed were not easy. Grant sent flowers. White roses. The kind Evelyn used to love. There was no card attached. Only a note delivered through an assistant. We need to speak privately. You are making this harder than it has to be. Then came messages. You are confused. Your friend Lena is filling your head with nonsense. Seo Jin is using you. Do not embarrass yourself publicly. You have no idea how the world works without me. Each message tried a different door. Guilt, fear, jealousy, shame. But Evelyn did not answer alone. Attorney Ma reviewed every message. Lena sat beside Evelyn when the quiet felt too loud. Mrs. Han checked in without pressing. And somewhere inside herself, Evelyn began to hear another voice. Not loud, not yet, but hers. The voice said, "This is not love." A voice said, "This is a pattern." The voice said, "I do not have to explain why I deserve safety." A week later, Evelyn opened her first bank account in her own name. The banker handed her a debit card. It was simple, plain. No dramatic music, no crowd, no applause. Just a card with her name printed across it. Evelyn held it longer than necessary. Then she slipped it carefully into her wallet. For years, Grant had made money feel like something frightening and complicated, something she could not touch without making a mistake. Now, this small account did not solve everything. It did not erase the hidden assets. It did not recover her home. It did not undo the years he had spent making her doubt herself. But it was hers, and that mattered. That evening, Seo Jin invited Evelyn to use a private workspace at one of the hotel's quieter properties. He did not call it a favor. He did not offer her money. He did not tell her what she should do next. Jin had arranged secure internet access, a locked drawer for documents, and a small conference room where Attorney Ma could meet her without hotel guests watching. Evelyn was suspicious at first. She said so. "I don't know you well enough to understand why you are helping me." Seo-jun nodded. "That is fair." "Then why?" He looked toward the window. "For a long time, people helped me only when they expected control in return. I decided I would not become that kind of person." Evelyn studied him. "And what do you expect from me?" "Nothing." "That sounds too easy." "It is not easy," he said. "It is just not a debt." His words reminded her of Mrs. Han. A safe room is not a debt. Maybe that was what real support sounded like. Not someone deciding her future for her. Not someone rushing in to become the hero. Just someone making space for her to stand. As Evelyn began sorting through the records Attorney Ma had recovered, another truth surfaced. She had not only helped build Grant's public image, she had helped build his business, the charity events, the donor relationships, the reputation management, the staff loyalty, the community connections. Grant had called it supporting his career. But Evelyn began to see that she had been working, unpaid, uncredited, and then erased. Lena watched Evelyn organize a binder one afternoon and said, "You know you are good at this, right?" Evelyn looked up. "At paperwork?" "At people," Lena said. "At systems. At seeing what needs to be done before anyone asks." Evelyn gave a small laugh. "Grant used to say I was just good at making things look nice." Lena's face changed. "Grant said a lot of things because he needed you to think small." The sentence stayed with Evelyn. She had spent years believing she had no professional value because Grant never let her name exist beside his. But once she began looking at the foundation records, she noticed things Attorney Ma had not yet seen. Names repeated across payments, service contracts that seemed inflated, donors who had stopped giving after Evelyn stopped handling relationships personally, public programs that received less funding than the events created to advertise them. She started making notes, not because she wanted revenge, but because she wanted to understand. And understanding was becoming its own form of power. And Grant, meanwhile, was losing patience. He believed Evelyn would return once the fear settled in. He believed she would accept a settlement, sign whatever he put in front of her, and disappear quietly. That was how he had imagined the end. But Evelyn did not disappear. She started asking questions, and the more questions she asked, the more Grant's carefully built life began to shake. A message arrived from Marjorie one afternoon. Not a threat, not an apology, just 3 words. "We need to talk." Evelyn stared at the screen for a long time. Attorney Ma advised caution. Lena said she did not trust Marjorie. Evelyn agreed with both of them. But something inside her knew Marjorie was not reaching out because she had suddenly developed a conscience. She was reaching out because something had changed. Maybe Grant had lied to her too. Maybe Marjorie had begun to realize that a man who could erase one woman could erase another. Evelyn did not respond immediately. For once, she let someone else wait. Evelyn returned to the hotel lobby alone. Not the same lobby where Grant had left her. A different property, a quieter space, still warm with light, still filled with people moving through their lives. She stood near the entrance for a moment and watched a young woman struggle with a suitcase, while trying to keep a toddler from running toward the revolving door. Without thinking, Evelyn stepped forward and helped. The woman looked exhausted, embarrassed. She apologized for taking up space. Evelyn recognized that apology. She had said it too many times. "You don't have to apologize," Evelyn told her. "You're doing fine." The woman smiled, surprised. Then she hurried on. Evelyn stood still after she left. For the first time, she understood something she had not been able to see on Valentine's Day. She was not the only woman who had ever been made to feel like a burden. She was not the only woman who had been told that asking for help made her difficult. She was not the only woman who had been forced to rebuild from one bag, one phone call, one safe room. The thought did not make her pain smaller. It made it meaningful. Seo-jun found Evelyn sitting alone near the hotel's indoor garden. He did not sit until she nodded. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Evelyn said, "I used to think strength meant never needing anyone." So June looked ahead. No. Strength is knowing the difference between help and control. Evelyn let that settle. I'm still learning. So am I, he said. There was no grand confession, no promise, no romance built from pain. Only two people sitting in a quiet place, each learning that trust could be slow and still be real. The next morning, Attorney Ma called with urgent news. A financial investigator had reviewed the documents from the hotel suite. The transfers were more extensive than they first appeared. Several assets had been moved through companies connected to Grant's foundation. One property had been placed under a shell entity. Another account contained funds transferred shortly before Valentine's Day. And the most troubling part was not the money, it was the timing. Grant had begun moving assets months before he left Evelyn. He had been preparing for her reaction, preparing to call her unstable, preparing to make her look irresponsible, preparing to tell everyone she had abandoned him. Attorney Ma's voice was calm when she said it, but Evelyn heard what it meant. Grant had not just planned an exit, he had planned a trap. Attorney Ma told her not to panic. They had evidence now. They had options. But Evelyn did not feel panic. Not exactly. She felt something else, a cold, clear anger. Not the kind that made her reckless, the kind that made her ready. At the end of the day, Evelyn stood in the workspace with the folder from the hotel safe open before her. The papers no longer looked like a mystery. They looked like a map of all the places Grant had hidden the truth. And for the first time, Evelyn understood that she was no longer searching for a way back into her old life. She was searching for the way out. She touched the silver watchbox still sitting in her bag, the gift she had meant to give Grant. She opened it once, looked at the watch, then closed it, not because she was holding on to him, but because she was finally ready to decide what happened to the things she had once saved for someone who did not deserve them. The episode ends with Evelyn receiving a second message from Marjorie. This one includes an attachment, a scanned document, a private agreement between Grant and Marjorie. At the bottom is a sentence Evelyn cannot ignore. Evelyn must be removed before the audit begins. Evelyn looks up from the screen. Attorney Ma is already reaching for her phone. Lena is standing beside Evelyn now, not behind her. And across the city, Grant Whitaker believes the woman he threw out on Valentine's Day is still too frightened to fight. He does not know that Evelyn has finally stopped asking for permission to survive. He does not know that she is about to learn the full truth. And he does not know that the first door he closed behind her may become the door that exposes everything. Grant thought Evelyn would be too ashamed to tell anyone what he had done. But by the time she opens Marjorie's attachment, Evelyn realizes Grant did not leave her with nothing. He left behind evidence. Evelyn has found the first proof that Grant's betrayal was planned. And in episode 2, she learns what he hid, what he used her name to protect, and how one open door becomes the beginning of a life he can no longer control. The story is fictional. The pattern is real.
Please don't forget to like this video, share with your friends, and leave a comment below. Subscribe, join the family, and let us know where you are watching and listening from. The lessons you learned, and your thoughts on how we can continue improving to give you the very best. Thank you.